welcome you to the Troy City Council meeting for September 20th, 2010. And we're going to have our Mayor Pro Tem, Wade Fleming, give the invocation, and then that'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
Let us pray. Father, I just acknowledge that you are the creator of the universe and everything in it, Father. We know that you understand our thoughts afar off. Father, we know that you know every time we sit down, every time we stand up, Father. Father, we just acknowledge that everything that you do is in order, orderly manner, Lord. And just pray tonight that this meeting will be conducted in a manner that's pleasing to thee. And Father, we just thank you for this country that we live in, a great country. Father, we just thank you for every person serving this country, the military, at home and abroad. Father, just build a hedge of protection around them, Father, and be with them and their families, Father. Help us just to continue to love you more, Lord. These things we pray in your precious name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Fleming. May we have the roll call, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini? Here. Fleming?
Here.
Hauerlack? Kerwin?
Here.
McGinnis?
Here.
Slater?
Here.
Quorum present.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilwoman Beltramini?
I would move to excuse Councilmember Hauerlack as he is out of the country.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Beltramini, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Fleming, that we excuse Councilman Hauerlack for being out of the country. Discussion?
Is this the out of the country or is this Arizona?
He is out of the country.
It's not Arizona this week.
Well, it could be out of the country. We'll do it county.
Out of the county, and then we'll
Just to be
cover
more
it.
exact, thank you.
Okay.
Delete the R, please.
Mrs. Bartholomew, the vote?
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
No.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Motion passes. This evening, we actually have three presentations. One, two. Just one moment. Mrs. Bartholomew, when do we have to have the change of rules of for 5 minutes to 3 minutes? Now or after presentations?
Actually, that's not addressed as to when it occurs, so you could do it just prior to opening it for comments from the visitors or public.
As we're one away from the 15th. And there's some people in the audience that haven't signed. If there's someone in the audience that wants to speak on an item, whether it's on the agenda or off the agenda, if I could direct you to go and sign up on the kiosk so we could know exactly how many people are speaking, it'll make a difference. We'll be doing that shortly after the presentations. Our first presentation is from Charlie Liu, who is the Marketing Director of the Oriental Cultural Association, and he is going to present regarding their annual event, Shenyang Performing Arts. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of the council. My name is Charlie Liu. I'm from Oriental Culture Association. We are based in Troy, a federal 501c3 nonprofit. We've been promoting Shenyang in Metro Detroit for past 3 years. In January 2011, we'll be bringing the Shenyang Performing Arts to Detroit, Southeast Michigan, for the fourth time. And tonight, we're going to introduce the Shenyang Performing Arts to City Council, and hopefully more Troy residents will come to see the show, enjoy a very, very rich cultural performance. This year, we bring this show to Detroit for 4 days and 5 shows. Started in 2008 just as one show. Now we have 5 shows. Shenyang Performing Arts is actually formed by overseas Chinese Americans in New York, with Chinese artists all over the world, from Asia and Europe and other countries. And their mission is to revive the traditional Chinese culture, in particular the classical Chinese performing arts, which is a lost art ruined, destroyed by the Chinese communist system for over 60 years now in China. So this group of artists, they form in USA and try to revive this culture. And really, kind of a side story, Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. is the National Theater of the United States, and Opera House inside the Kennedy Center is never for rent. So any performing group to perform there, you have to be invited by the center directors. And Shen Yun Performing Arts have been invited and performed twice a year. 1 week in summer, 1 week in the winter as part of the worldwide tour. So this shows not only it is a top USA, like top level performing arts, it in a way represents United States. So this is not just Chinese culture performance. In a way, it's an American show. And they have 3 companies. They're doing the show same time, East Coast, West Coast, then they go to Europe and Asia. So really everywhere it goes, it was very well received. And before I show the video, I'd like to extend the invitation to members of the council and the mayor we have a special reception after the show in January, so you are very welcome to join us. Thank you very much. Now let's play the video.
Thank you.
Don't miss this extraordinary opportunity. The world-famous Shen Yun dancers bring classic Chinese dance to life on stage at the Detroit Opera House January 20th to the 23rd, 2011. Come experience the brilliant choreography, gorgeous costumes, breathtaking backdrops, and unforgettable music. The beauty, color, and energy will delight your soul. Hurry and get your tickets now at Ticketmaster or detshows.com. Delight your soul with an extraordinary experience of beauty, color, and energy. Classical Chinese dance brought to life on stage. Breathtaking backdrops, thunderous drums, and unforgettable music make this show not to miss. Part of a 20-country world tour.
Does that conclude your presentation?
I think that's it. We have more exciting videos on our website, DET Shows. I think every member has a copy now, so
Yes, we
go to
do.
the website. You can, if city member or city employees would like to purchase group tickets, please call us.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Next, I have 2 proclamations to present, and our first one goes to David Paul, and he is the COO of Medical Weight Loss Clinic in Troy, and I'll go down to the front to make that presentation. Come around this side. This is a proclamation of Childhood Obesity Awareness Week, September 20th through the 27th, 2010. Whereas childhood obesity has tripled in the past decade, and whereas 1 in 3 children are now considered obese or overweight, and experts estimate that by 2020, approximately 15 million children in the United States will be considered obese. And whereas at the current rate, 1/3 to 1/2 of the children born in the 21st century will become diabetics. Whereas in Michigan, 12% of middle school children and 15% of high school students are considered obese. And whereas parents are encouraged to sit down with their children and teach them how to make healthier food choices, the importance of portion control, and the value of exercise. Now, therefore be it resolved, the Troy City Council does hereby proclaim September 20th through the 27th, 2010 as Childhood Obesity Awareness Week in the city of Troy, Michigan. Be it further resolved, the City Council recognizes the efforts of such organizations as Medical Weight Loss Clinic in providing the resources and tools for the Michigan youth to make healthy food choices, and calls upon all citizens, community agencies, organizations, and businesses in Troy to recognize and take advantage of the programs designed for and available to their children and support them in leading healthier lives. And this is presented this 20th day of September 2010, signed by myself and all members of council. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Do you want to say a few words?
I would love to. Thank you.
Right here.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and esteemed members of Council. On behalf of Medical Weight Loss Clinic, would like to extend our extreme gratitude and appreciation for the support the City of Troy has always shown us as doing business here, and also in this very important issue that we're trying to bring as much light to as we can in terms of childhood obesity awareness. We have received extreme support from statewide levels. Governor Granholm also proclaimed it a statewide proclamation, as well as several local offices as well. And to have the City of Troy back us in our efforts, we couldn't appreciate it more, and we really would like to extend our deepest gratitude and thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I have to stand behind the podium because then we look slimmer.
Well, we're hoping to change all that for everybody. Thank you. Myself included. Something we all struggle. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have Ann Comiskey come up, please? As you know, Ann is the leader of the Community Coalition to Prevent Drug and Alcohol Abuse in Troy. And this is a proclamation for the 10th anniversary of Family Day, a day to eat dinner with your children in small portions. September 27th, 2010. Whereas the use of illegal drugs and abuse of alcohol and nicotine constitute the greatest threats to the well-being of America's children. And whereas surveys conducted by the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse at Columbia University have consistently found that the more often children and teenagers eat dinner with their families, the less likely they are to smoke, drink, and use illegal drugs. Whereas teenagers who virtually never eat dinner with their families are 72% more likely than the average teenager to use illegal drugs, alcohol, and cigarettes. Whereas teenagers who most always eat dinner with their families are 31% less likely than the average teenager to use illegal drugs, alcohol, and cigarettes. And whereas the correlation between the family dinners and the reduced risk for teen substance abuse are well documented, parental influence is known to be one of the most crucial factors in determining the likelihood of substance abuse by teenagers. And whereas given these facts, and in recognition that family dinners have long constituted a substantial pillar of family life in America, CASA at Columbia University conceived of Family Day, a day to eat dinner with your children, and it's now in its 10th year. Whereas the following local Troy merchants, together with Troy Community Coalition for the Prevention of Drug and Alcohol Abuse, are working together to make Family Day a success in our city. And these Troy merchants are Papa Romano's, Bangkok Bistro, Hollywood Markets, Nino Salvaggio, and Noodles and Company. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Troy hereby proclaims September 27th, 2010 as Family Day, a day to eat dinner with your children in the City of Troy. Be it further resolved that we invite all Troy residents to recognize and participate in the observance of this 10th anniversary of Family Day and encourage everyone to eat dinner together with their children. Presented this 20th day of September, signed by myself and all members of council. Ann, thank you.
Thank you.
All your good work.
Thank
Would you like to say a few words?
Just a few words. We have a flyer that's available here at City Hall and at the Coalition offices, which are on Livernois in the Troy School District Services Building, which provide a $5 off coupon for the merchants that were just listed. And we know how important parents are in the lives of their children, and that eating dinner with the family just once a year makes a big difference. We hope that you do it more frequently than that, and of course watch your portion control. I think it's very appropriate that it is the last day of the Obesity Awareness Month that we have Family Day. It's a nice way to wrap up the whole week. So we encourage you to get your coupons and your information either here at City Hall or at the Coalition office at the Troy School District. Thank you both, Mayor and City Council members, for your support of this event for us in Troy for the past many years. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Before we go on, we need to have a suspension of the rules to do the public comment portion to 3 minutes. We do have 15 people that have signed up. So I'll move to suspend the rules.
Support.
Moved by the chair, seconded by Councilwoman Kerwin, that we suspend the rules. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes. Motion passes. I move that the public comment portion be changed from 5 minutes to 3 minutes per person, given that we're over the limit of 15 people to speak.
Support.
Moved by the chair, seconded by Councilwoman Kerwin. Discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
Madam Mayor, I won't be supporting this because I think we're barely at 15 or barely over, and I don't think that's a burden on us tonight. So I won't be supporting this.
Further discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Fleming?
No.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
No, I only count 14.
Did you count Mr. Peters?
No, I didn't. He's not on here. Yes, I did count Mr. Peters.
Further discussion? Or is there, did we had,
Check.
excuse me.
I'm counting 14 as signed in.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. If there is anyone who wishes to speak that did not sign up, would they so indicate? Okay. Being that we have 14 and not 15, I'm sorry, I miscounted. I don't think we can suspend the rules. Is that correct, Mrs. Bartholomew?
At this point in time, we do have an approved motion, and so we will have to rescind that motion, or we'll have to rescind it.
Okay. Council members, is it your pleasure to rescind? Yes. Okay. I'll move that we rescind the motion.
Support.
Moved by the chair, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Fleming, that we rescind the motion to change the time allotment from 5 to 3 minutes. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Motion passes. I apologize for the error. We will move on then to public comment, and I want to indicate that this is on items that are on the agenda or items that are not on the agenda. And I will call on you in the order in which you signed up here. And we begin with Ralph Korber. Nice to see you again, Ralph.
Madam Mayor and honorable council members and city staff, my name is Ralph Kerber, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you, and I'll try and hold my remarks to within your 3-minute goal. On Thursday the 16th.
Now, if
yes.
we didn't do 3 minutes, we did 5 because
No,
we
I
were
know that.
one short, but you don't have to go 5 minutes. Thank you.
That's what I was saying. Last Thursday, I sent an email, a two-page email covering 2 topics to each of you. And in the email, I expressed concerns and observations of city that I was wanting to bring to your attention, and I was inviting that you would review this and take some action. I've been away traveling upstate. Actually, sorry that my voice is like this, but I spent too many hours on a dance floor and singing, and it kind of caught me a little bit this weekend. I got back late this afternoon, and I find that I have 2 emails of correspondence related to this that I'll address in a moment. In summary, point 1 relates to the existence of the City of Troy fencing, and in particular barbed wire that's on the fences, and the various conditions. Some citizens have cut in gates into city fences, and I question whether that's appropriate and acceptable and safe, because it might provide ingress and egress into closed city parks at a time that would be inappropriate. And so I bring that to your attention, not knowing what is the policy of the city, and that's really what is my concern. A lot of the barbed wire is in a state of disrepair. Some has been taken down. A lot of it is rusted, and I think it's very dangerous. And so given what some other cities have as a city policy, I think that it would be important that this topic be addressed. There are other points in that topic of other observations as related to the Sylvan Glen Lake Park also. Now, I did receive a memo this afternoon that was dated Friday at 3:44, and it came to me, and it had in it a brief reply from Carol Anderson. And I failed to believe her reply. And her explanation, which was basically that the barbed wire was put on there so that a golfer couldn't climb over the fence with his golf clubs and go in and golf and not pay. Seems to me that if somebody did that we might want to have that presented to the media, and we get some pretty good advertising for our golf course for something like that if we have that kind of an advocate. But my point is that I believe that she missed the point, and that I felt that her answer was inadequate. It would certainly be unacceptable, I think, to the members of the council, very incomplete. And so I asked that the council again ask for these departments to address each of these observations, concerns, and to come up with a report. And I speak not just for myself, okay, and I felt as though she was answering just to me, but I'm speaking for all the citizens of Troy when I ask for this, and I think that it's a very important topic. And so I asked for that. Now, my second topic had to do with the article in the Somerset Gazette that brought to our attention that it's great that some of the stimulus money is coming for energy conservation. And there was a pointed there with respect to the city fleet. And so I asked some pointed questions and asked again that a report be provided in the Troy Bulletin or something that would give us some answers so that the public at large would have a better idea of our fleet, its uses, who has vehicles and what they're used for and so forth like that, and some of the cost benefit of having a fleet as opposed to mileage reimbursement. So again, I would ask that, yes, I did receive an email inviting me to call the superintendent of the fleet operation, but I didn't see these till I got home after, just before this meeting, so I didn't have an opportunity to respond to either of those. But I would appreciate some attention to these topics by the various departments, because I think that's very important. And while I'm here, I certainly want to thank each of you for your personal dedication to what you are doing, because it's by your participation that we know you as being effective citizens that are making our city a much better place, and you're maintaining and sustaining it and helping us to move forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carver. Our next speaker will be Earl Cannon.
Good evening,
Good
Madam
evening.
Mayor and Council. My name's Earl Cannon. I've lived in Troy for about 40 years now, immigrant from Ohio. But all our children went to Michigan colleges, so that confirmed our identity in a hurry. After watching a video of last week's council meeting, I felt obligated to respond to some very negative comments made by some of the audience speakers. Allegations of mismanagement by the council and library officials were present without argument or evidence. They were presented. I'd like to offer some positive comments on the City of Troy and the library management that are readily apparent to anyone with an open mind. Troy has long had growth as a city and a good place to live through city planning and services that attract population and business ventures. As someone aptly argued, a community without a library is like a body without a brain. Financial problems of the Troy budget that we are experiencing are the same or similar as throughout the nation. Troy, unlike our federal government, though, cannot spend money it doesn't have. The November ballot, Proposal 1, will cost me about 1/3 of the amount of the lesser taxes that I now already enjoy. I'll be delighted to pay to keep the library open. I commend the Troy City Councils, past and present, and all the people, paid and voluntary, who have made our library the valuable community it is. I invite anyone to come to the library and see for themselves. Lastly, I've enjoyed 2 careers in my lifetime, one as an engineer and a manager for General Motors, and about equal years in education through adult right through university level. Greatly enjoyed it. It all started with great teachers and a library card a long time ago. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'll hear from Janice Daniels. Good evening.
I feel just the opposite. I don't think that there's anything dishonest or misleading about having a serious disagreement with having yet another tax increase proposal put on the ballot this November. This new group, Friends of the Library with No New Taxes, has every right in the world to call themselves Friends of the Library with No New Taxes, because quite frankly, that name describes exactly who they are, Friends of the Library, and they don't want new taxes. We all want our library to stay open. That's a given. It's disingenuous for the tax and spenders to try to marginalize us by rather than having a transparent, open discussion about how to properly fund it. Another tax increase, or do we want government to reorganize their priorities to find a way to operate without another tax increase? I thought that over 12,000 registered voters already clarified this issue in February when we clearly stated no new taxes. And by inference, I would like to remind you that we're very interested in the equalization of wages, perks, benefits, and pleasures that are enjoyed by the city public officials in comparison to the private sector. There's no deception. That's very clear. No new taxes. The petition that's being circulated asks that an ordinance be added that simply states that the City of Troy will maintain and operate the public library and keep it open for the public for at least 55 hours a week. We don't want to vote another hidden, bloated bureaucracy upon ourselves, and that is what each and every one of these tax proposals that are on the November ballot will do. And why talk endlessly about how wonderful the past was back when the taxpayers had an endless supply of cash to fund libraries and parks and golf courses and running trails and lamp posts and fountains and pensions and car allowances for all of our government employees? It's now the year 2010, and there's no more money left. And there's no more tolerance left for government excess, for scare tactics or bullying or Saul Alinsky-style demonization of our legitimate and broad-based concerns about the proper compensation of government employees. In a recent letter to the editor, we were called shadowy political operatives using deception to hijack the truth. Excuse me? That person that wrote that should pursue a career in writing fictional detective stories. The truth is we don't want our taxes to go up under any new scheme or guise. The truth is that the people in the private sector are already paying about 45 to 50% of their income in taxes and fees. So this isn't just another $99 a year. The truth is that it's an improper analogy to talk about the differing tax rates in Clawson, where a beautiful 2,000 square foot colonial built in 1988 sold for $134,400 in January of 2010, versus in Troy, where a beautiful 1,970 square foot colonial built in 1984 sold for $225,000 in May of 2010. So the home values are higher in Troy, so a lower tax base still equates to more money. The truth is that everyone should sign the petition and force the city to live up to its obligations to maintain control of our library and keep it open for at least 55 hours a week. And the truth is we should all vote no on all 4 tax proposals that are on the November ballot. That's the truth. No deception. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Gordon Shepke. Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk tonight. I appreciate being able to address the council. And rather than comments tonight, I have some more questions than comments. You know, I've been walking around and I've seen a few of these vote for proposition, I guess proposal 1. And I've started thinking about it. And I want to ask some questions about it. It scares me when some of the friends of the library I've been talking to are saying, now we get this new board in, this is going to be an open door for us to get a new 2-story library because our facility is too small. That scares me because I don't want any backdoor tax increases. I don't know what kind of powers this library board is going to have compared to of the accountability that the city management has. I want to make sure that the voters know that if they choose to support this issue, that they will not be hit with a backdoor tax increase when it comes to this library board not wanting to accept our present building, our present books, our present computers and stuff like that. If they want all new, if they can demand a new building, if they can float bonds or anything to make, besides the amount of money that's going to be put through on the initiative, the operating initiative, do they have the right till they start operation to want all new furniture, all new computers, all new a new building and stuff like that? We have all these czars in Washington that aren't accountable to anybody. Is this library board going to be like another DDA that's not really accountable? I need to have some answers on that so I can make a good decision. Right now, it seems to me the best alternative for me and some of my neighbors is just to require a city ordinance changed requiring the city to maintain the library, because I don't want a duplication of computers, books, and all of these costs. We already have a beautiful library right now that, as for me, I'm very proud of. And I think that every city needs to have a library. And I want to make sure that I want to know if there's any stretch of the imagination that this new library board can come up with any backdoor tax increases on the public. Right now, everybody is very stressed, and that was made very clear in the last on that 1.9 tax increase. So I would appreciate it if the administration or the council could let me know what kind of powers this new board is going to have, because I want this board to be accountable and not, I don't want another runaway bureaucracy. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Michael Hudson. Good evening.
Madam Mayor, good evening, members of council. My name is Michael Hudson, and I am the chairman of the Troy Planning Commission. September 8th, we had a joint meeting with the Birmingham Planning Board concerning the Troy Intermodal Transit Center. We've had these meetings for going on about a year and a half. The meeting on September 8th was to look for the approval of a preliminary site plan approval of the Intermodal Center. Since we've got two jurisdictions on two sides of the track, Birmingham went first, and in about 30 seconds they unanimously approved preliminary site plan approval. I chaired the second part of the meeting with the Troy Planning Commission. And to my embarrassment and surprise, by a 4-3 vote, our Troy Planning Commission decided not to make a recommendation as submitted in our agenda. While I was disappointed, I accepted that. Over the weekend, I was thinking about whether or not I wanted to appear before the Troy City Council and address that, and in essence, re-argue a position. And I determined I was not going to do that because I believe that a commission should speak with one voice. When there's a majority vote on an issue, I believe that's the position of the commission, and that should be the end of it. This afternoon, I was given access to 2 emails sent by 2 members of our Planning Commission to you and the Council concerning the item on the agenda tonight. Quite frankly, both emails, I think, accurately reflect the division on the Planning Commission and set forth our positions. But I was disturbed that what we've got now is we've got several voices from the Planning Commission advocating for a position which was determined by the Planning Commission. We gave you a resolution. And while I disagreed with that, I don't want to address the merits of that resolution. I'd like to address something a little broader, and that's the process. When a commission or a committee of the City of Troy has an issue before it, it's debated, reasonably debated, articulately debated, and a decision's made, that should be the end of it. You should have before you tonight for consideration purely the issue of the preliminary site plan of the Troy Intermodal Transit Center. Our commission made a recommendation. Staff has made another recommendation. We've had several members communicate with you. Quite frankly, I think that poses a problem for the City of Troy in the process. Once a commission's made a decision, that should be it. If we have every member of a commission or a committee disagrees or wants to reinforce a point before their committee, before a city council, comes in here, what that's going to do is invite confusion, have the applicants who appear before a commission wonder whether or not that decision and the process they've gone through is going to remain true. To otherwise do it and listen to everybody who has an opinion after a vote's been taken, I think seriously impairs the ability of this city to do its job. And I think individual lobbying is a thing that should not happen before this commission. And I truly believe that you're going to have all the facts before you tonight. You've got the intelligence to make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Next, we'll hear from Gerard Stager. Good evening.
Hi. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. I came to talk briefly about the library. I've used the library since I was 5 years old. That was in a different community, and I like libraries a lot. Where I lived when I was growing up, we didn't even have a library building. We had the basement of a building where we kept books, and we built up and saved money to the point that we had a library building. And you don't need to have a lot of money to have a good library. You need to have people concerned about the library who want to use the library. We all in Troy want to have the library, and I think that anyone who says otherwise is out of step with the community. And I suspect in the elections next year for some new city council members, and I know the mayor, you're retiring, there'll be a new mayor. I think anyone who runs for office and says that they will get on council and vote to close the library most likely will not be elected next year. We're going to keep a library. The question is how best to do it. There's one group called Friends of the Library with No New Taxes, and they have moved for a petition drive that would try to put the council back on step with what we want, to keep the library continuing, even though we know the city as a whole has to economize. Then there are 4 ballot proposals on the ballot that will increase taxes and will set up a brand new library district with a brand new 6-member board and a brand new administration to run the whole thing. And one of these proposals, for example, the city assessor told us back in the winter that the average residence now in Troy has a value of $106,000. That would run the average homeowner in Troy over $100 a year for 10 years. It will cost over $1,000 in additional taxes. And this money would raise, these taxes would raise $4.3 million. The library currently runs on about $3.6 million. That's an additional $700,000 a year in spending. That will be considerably more spending while the rest of the city of Troy economizes, and those of us who are taxpayers with the economy have had to economize also. It doesn't make sense. And the director of the library has said that she could keep the library open on as little as $2 million a year. These millage proposals will raise over double that amount of money. And it's in the midst of a recession. It seems like every month you have businesses coming up here asking for a tax abatement to either stay in Troy or to move to Troy or to expand in Troy because they're struggling. They're having trouble paying their taxes. Madam Mayor, you've probably seen, like I have, people have had their houses foreclosed upon, and you see the furniture scattered out in the front lawn. We have more foreclosures in Troy than probably ever. To raise taxes in the midst of a recession is a very bad idea. This new library district will have a new bureaucracy. It will not be part of the city of Troy. The city of Troy will collect its taxes, but it will have a new bureaucracy, a new 6-member board that could deadlock. It's not even clear if it will even own the library or its books or materials. It's from Public Act 164 of 1877. That was a law passed back in 1877. It took only 50 signatures to get it on the ballot. It's not representative of what we want. And in fact, in that act, Public Act 164 of 1877, there's a section that reads that if there's voter approval and the library board meets and determines a budget by the first Monday in September, this is back before they had Labor Day, it reads that they could raise the millage up to 2 mills from 0.9885 or whatever measure might pass without a public vote. It's a poorly written law. It's hard to understand it, but it looks like that could be argued and could hold up in court. A petition drive certainly seems like a more reasonable approach. It's a very bad proposal. All 4 proposals are very bad and would not be a good idea. If you oppose a ballot proposal, unfortunately, you're told that you don't care about the community, that you're a quote-unquote library opponent, that you don't care about children, and that, in general, you're a bad person. That's hogwash. That's nonsense. Everybody in Troy wants the library, and we know we want a library. It's not about the library, but what is a good proposal? And we need to know now, are these ballot proposals good? And they're not. They're a very bad idea. What would be a good idea would be to sign the petition, present it to council, and get you back on track with what we want. It only takes one more vote from you. There was a very close vote back in May. And Madam Mayor and members of council, I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Marvin Reinhardt. Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor. I know this is a very difficult time, but to back up what the gentleman says, in the Somerset Gazette, August 30th, there's these 4 ads down at the bottom of the paper. These are 2 companies who want tax incentives and they want to be taken off the tax roll from the DDA area. Okay, this DDA is a criminal organization, according to me. You can't find no information about it. Nowhere in the newspaper you know who these people are. They want to take $2 million off the tax rolls, so the rest of the citizens are going to have to make up for this tax. Then you have this item called I-6. on tonight's agenda. I didn't even know it was there. It's basically saying you're going to bring a guy in here to tell you guys what you guys are supposed to be doing. Now, you guys been the council people up here, some of you 30 years in Troy, and it says here it's going to coach you on specifically what you guys are supposed to do. Now, what are we paying you guys for up here? This is getting ridiculous. And then you guys are going to close down some committees. I understand why you're closing down this youth council, because you don't build sidewalks for kids going to school. You don't want the kids to walk to school. When you're saying obesity in this school, you don't even have sidewalks down the street to go down to Baker Junior High. Why is that? Because you don't want to protect these kids in school. But there are council people that live off this city, the Girls and Boys Club. They want to save the library. If you notice who's supporting it, Stewart. How in the world could Stewart say he wants to raise taxes? How much property does he rent in this? How many tax incentives does he get? Then Bosnick. Can you count up? I go up to your city there, and according to your highest paid manager in the city of Michigan, you hit one button and find out who got all the tax breaks. You guys don't even know who you give your tax breaks to. You don't have the addresses, all the 5013Cs in this city. And the Kiwanis Club did you great. You notice the picture of them sitting in the San Marino's wine cellar saying, come on, join the Kiwanis so you can drink more wine. In the San Marino Club, they make fun of the American flag. On 9/11, they had their flag all the way up to the top of the pole, celebrating the attack on America. And then as far as this transit center goes, right in this week's paper, it's going to be 10 times the size as it started out. So this is where this money goes. There's plenty of money in this city. And I support you, Mayor. These people in the city don't pay enough taxes already. They should pay a lot more in taxes. And if you go to the website called ripoff.com, Troy, Michigan has 54 pages of city companies inside this city that's ripped off the citizens. 54 pages on Google. You know how much that is? And like I said, I do want you guys to vote yes, because these people need more taxes to give away to these city people. You say no, the money raised by this tax is for the library. What about the money supposed to be going to the library already? That's going to be given away in tax breaks to Bosnick and Little Stewart and the rest of the DDA people, because I think those people should be investigated and audited. You guys have a good day, and I really hope this guy at I-6 can tell you guys what he's supposed to do. And did you see that picture in Oakland Press, father and daughter team of the judgeship? One day you might be that, McGillis. You have a good day. And I'm watching you guys like a hawk. Have a day.
Edna Abraham wishes to speak next. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council members. Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passion, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence. Those words were uttered by our founding father and second President of the United States, John Adams, as part of his defense of the British soldiers at the Boston Massacre trials. Despite his inclinations to doubt the British soldiers and condemn them, as his friends and neighbors were compelling him to do, he could not ignore the facts and evidence of the case. Against the odds, he was able to convince a jury of his peers to acquit them by clearly presenting the stubborn facts. I couldn't help but think of this quote when I hear of the misinformation, innuendo, and wishful thinking that is bandied about in regards to the closure of the Troy Public Library and Proposal 1 that was written to keep the library open for future generations to enjoy. I am voting yes on Proposal 1 based on the stubborn facts. Some Troy citizens are inclined to believe that the Troy Public Library could never close, or that Troy has extra money that could be allocated to the library. The stubborn fact is that Troy property values, like most cities in Michigan, are declining. Lower property values means that the city has less funds available to maintain the level of services to which we have become accustomed to. Just as we citizens have had to take things out of our own personal budgets, things that we once deemed essential, so has City Council. And as much as I wish it were otherwise, the stubborn fact is that on May 10th, City Council approved a 3-year budget that excluded funding for the library after June 30th, 2011. Some Troy citizens had said that closing the library would save the city millions of dollars. But the stubborn fact is that the reason the library is closing is that there was no money to fund it. You cannot save money when there was never any money to begin with. There were some who claim malfeasance or mismanagement of funds on the part of City Council. The stubborn fact is that the budget discussions, like all City Council meetings, are public record and the information is readily available either on the website or at City Hall. Troy citizens are rightfully upset about the library's closure. I know I am. The library is an asset to our community. It's a jewel in my mind. It's invaluable to students who depend on it for its resources. It's invaluable to families who depend on the cultural and educational activities it provides. It is invaluable to the elderly who may not be able to afford a computer or the ongoing internet costs. And it is especially invaluable to those who are down on their luck, who need the library's resources to help them find employment and to learn more skills to make them marketable. It is a stubborn fact that not having a library will make Troy a substantially less attractive place for families and businesses. And you think if you've seen our property values drop, they're going to drop even further if we don't have a library. So, the question remains, what can be done to prevent the library's closure? The stubborn fact is that the one and only way to keep the library open past June 30th, 2011 would be by voting yes on Proposal 1 on November 2nd. Proposal 1 would establish an independent public library with 100% of the funds used for library services and operations and these funds could not be touched by City Council. The funds would bring back the level of services that we have enjoyed and have come to expect. And what I mean by that is a library that's open 7 days a week for 65 hours with book discussion groups and cultural and educational programs. Because the library would no longer be a city department, it would be managed by an elected 6-member board of directors who are nonpartisan and non-paid Troy citizens, putting the public back into the public library. The millage rate for Proposal 1 is .9885 for 10 years. This would ensure the library funding is sustainable for the foreseeable future. For most families who have a house of a taxable value of $100,000, this would equate to about $99 a year or $2 a week. For me, this is 2 vanilla lattes a month. I think I can give that up. Proposal 1 is the only library proposal on the November ballot that has been endorsed by the Citizens to Save the Troy Public Library. There are some who may question the motives of the Citizens to Save the Troy Public Library. The stubborn fact is that they are regular Troy citizens, housewives, retirees, and working people who cannot bear the thought of the library closing. They are a group of like-minded individuals who have banded together with one purpose in mind, keeping the library we know and love open for future generations. It is the very definition of grassroots effort, and I am proud to call myself a member of that group. I know I'm not alone when I say that I've done things in the past few months that I never dreamt that I would do. Canvass neighborhoods, write letters to the editor.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that was the 5-minute clock.
Apologize. Thank you for your time, and for more information, go to SaveTroyLibrary.com.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker for 5 minutes is Kumar Bhatt. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, honorable members of the City Council, and worthy citizens. I'm here to talk about Proposal 1 in support of library. I have 2 kids who were born and raised and who have used the Troy Public Library ever since they were toddlers. And they're doing well in high school simply because of the nurturing involvement with the library. I also want to bring your attention to a large Indo-American community who benefit a lot from the books and magazines from Asia. And I'm very thankful for the library that provides us with all those services. There's one more thing, and I want to rebut here. People are able to bring, the sales value of the homes that were sold, comparing the sales of our Troy versus other cities. And we have to keep in mind the home values, although they have gone down considerably, but they are still above some of the neighboring communities. Like, for example, Sterling Heights, Madison Heights. They're far below. And we have to ask ourselves, why is that? It's because of the quality of life. It's also because of the creative class that choose to reside in the city of Troy. And how do we retain them? Not by closing the library. We want to be able to provide those kinds of simple services that are appreciated by the creative class. And, by the way, there are folks who have said that they can run a library without raising taxes. The home values have gone down. The revenues have gone down. As one of my previous person who said that there's no money. So how are we going to run the library? I would like to see the operational details of running a library without any more, on $175,000? This is absolutely ridiculous. I think we're asking for trouble here. And some of the other previous speakers talked about hidden bureaucracy. What is hidden bureaucracy? When it is an open system, you have a system that is elected by the Troy citizens. There is no bureaucracy here. What are we talking about? We are talking about open democracy here. So I hope everybody who's watching this at least understands the value of the library that it provides, and please consider Proposal 1 as you go for the ballot in November. Thank you.
Our next speaker is James Savage. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. You probably expected me here tonight. Okay, on item I4 on the agenda, site approval for the Transit Centre. And I urge you to vote no on both of these resolutions. This transit centre is about spending taxpayers' money and not about moving people. All we have heard is about the building, and an example in this agenda, the building facade articulation to create a greater visual interest, a more identifiable building entrance, enhancing the sense of arrival by focusing on a major point of interest. And I wonder, what has that got to do with moving people? So nowhere is there any evidence of more passenger traffic being created. This issue has come before Council many times. It was an issue in the February election, when voters had to consider if their increased taxes would save the library or save jobs, or would it go towards financing such projects as the transit centre, which we don't want, we don't need, and we cannot afford. And just what are these costs involved? How many millions has the city spent or earmarked so far for studies, consultants, lobbyists, etc., etc.? Is it 1 or 2 million? Is it 10 million? 100 million? We never see these total figures. We get little bits here. Well, this is from this fund, or this is for that fund. It's all taxpayer money. And if and when it's finished, and it's sitting unused or underused, like the Silverdome, who is going to pay for the upkeep and maintenance? Even if it were successful beyond anyone's wildest dreams, it would always require public funding. So who wants this facility? Will it improve the quality of life for our citizens? Will travelers come to visit our city just because we have fancy terminal? It certainly didn't work for the magnificent Grand Trunk Station in Detroit. And that was one wonderful building, and it's deteriorating because there's no people. 25 years ago, Detroit People Mover started operating. Oh, it's much fanfare. I ride the People Mover about 2 or 3 times a month. Sometimes at lunchtime on a work day, even the Vincennes station is deserted. The only entity that might have benefited from this transit center is the developer, Grand Sacra, and they seem to be backing off, which could leave us with a lawsuit that we have little chance of winning. If this passes today, it will become a continuing contentious issue and will be added to the list along with the convention center, the stadium, the Monarch project, and the pavilions. I urge you to kill this now because it's going to ruin us and it's going to do nobody any good. It is a matter of spending taxpayer money, whether it be federal money that we don't have, or tax money that we don't have, or city money that we don't have. And by the way, thanks for our members for getting that 5 minutes. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tony Cruz. Good evening.
Good evening. Madam Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council and staff. My name is Tony Cruz. I've been a Troy resident for 17 years now. A clear message was sent during the last election. In spite of this, and in spite of an economy that is not turning around anytime soon, the city's revised strategy is to punish the already beleaguered taxpayer for our fiscal impudence. Canceling the financially neutral Troy days was the teaser slap. The real thrashing is holding our public library hostage. It now appears the so-called friends of the Troy Public Library are joining in a battle to vanquish the only ally they ever had, the taxpayer. It isn't enough that we are clearly out of money and must insist the gap be filled by having the public sector make the same sacrifices that we have made. The Friends are now infiltrating our local churches to spread the message that a tax increase is the only way to save the library. To turn against their only benefactors instead of joining the citizenry and insisting on improved husbandry of tax revenues is misguided at best. Imagine having a loved one kidnapped and receiving a ransom note that is impossible to meet. Imagine then being confronted by a group with the wherewithal to realistically negotiate a safe return of your loved one. Try to picture your dismay when such a group joins the kidnapper in demanding the ransom in full and accusing you of loving the victim less when you simply cannot comply. This is precisely how this group is behaving. They're preying on public ignorance of common sense and basic economics. A perfect example of this is a recent letter to the editor in one of Troy's local papers. In this letter, the writer said that she was tired of conservatives who, quote, want no taxes and no library, end quote. She summarized her point with the following gem, and I quote, if they want no taxes and no libraries, they should move to Mexico. For those of us less familiar with our southern neighbor, public libraries are practically non-existent, and their tax structure can make Harry Reid or Nancy Pelosi blush. Such is the naivete of the Friends and their allies prey upon, regardless of better intentions. In spite of claims to the contrary, there are many alternatives to maintaining the viability of this fine institution without raising taxes. One such option to keep the library open is to place a proposal on the next ballot to make the library's minimal operating schedule 55 hours a week by a local ordinance. Such a law would obligate the city to fund this outstanding library with our current tax base. In closing, although I love the library very much, and as a young man I worked for about 5 years at the public library where I lived in New Jersey many years ago, I urge all voters to vote no on the current November proposals. I also respectfully demand that you, this body of governance, stretch your resources by making the same sacrifices that we have made in the private sector. Use what we've already given you and stop asking for more. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Ed Kempen. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and members of council. Proposal 1 is straightforward, a tax increase. We have a library today operating under the city budget, but the budget is going away. So how can we say no to a millage when the library has a budget of 0 on it? Well, easy. We can ask council for a budget redo. This petition drive that we're working on right now will essentially ask that. Once we collect the signatures required, we're all going to come here and we're going to ask for a redo on that budget. And if the city council here votes it down, then it's going to go back to the voters, because the voters do have the right to veto what the council does. The voters actually sit above the city council in terms of the decision making when they've been petitioned. We will keep the library open, and I think we can do it without a tax increase. When our petition completes, you're going to have one more chance to keep it open, or the voters will decide for you. If you care about the library, sign this petition. People have been asking and saying that we shouldn't sign any petitions coming forward. I think that's hogwash as well. I think it's inappropriate to tell people what they can and can't sign. They can read it, and it is real straightforward. It says the City of Troy will operate a library for 55 hours per week. There's also a lot of unknowns about this November proposal. We don't need to pay for the books we've already bought, but we don't know what's going to happen to those we already have. We don't need to pay for the building we've already bought, but we don't know what the outcome of that is. We need clear direction, and the November proposals have no clear direction. I urge everyone to vote no in November. And I also have about 100 petition forms left that we're still collecting signatures on. So if anybody would like one, please meet with me here at the meeting or afterwards, and I'll be glad to hand one over, or as many as you would like to take, and help out with this proposal. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Thomas Burke.
Thank you, Council. One of the newspapers, local newspapers today, ran an article on Troy's distracted driver law. It stated that even though the city police department said this is not about the money, that 200 tickets, they're now warning tickets, have been issued to date. I don't know what the value of those tickets are. I'm sure they're not $5 a piece. Sounds like money to me. There were about 30 public comments attached to that article on the internet, all but one very negative. I think I could summarize them by just quoting one short one that said, "Boycott Troy." In general, this seems to be a very broad law, lacking in common sense, in response to a very few drivers lacking common sense. The samples used by the police in passing this law were drivers eating their breakfast from a bowl. That sure sounds like reckless driving to me. Somebody putting their makeup or doing outrageous things. There can't have been 200 Troy drivers doing those type of outrageous things to date. Changing subjects and trying not to replicate comments on the library. I really hate it when people talk about facts when they're opinions. Last week, I asked the city to hopefully clarify some of these legal issues. I thought there was something to be attached to the packet. I looked through the entire packet and I saw nothing addressed to council from city legal counsel regarding clarification of these issues. Next week's meeting has now been canceled, so even if it is the intent to do that, that will come far after the absentee voters are already trying to make up their minds. So we just continue having this big guessing game as to what an 1877 law means in today's world. Clearly that law, I have looked it up online, it does not appear to have been written with the intent of a city dumping an existing library onto a independent commission, and perhaps that is true. The questions, once again, all these rumors that are flying out around, how does an independent board miraculously gain control or title to a piece of the city property here in Troy? This library building is just a building with a sign on front that says library, and it could say meeting rooms the next week. So I strongly urge council to get into action and get some information out to people so we're not just guessing. Somebody said we should have open minds. I agree, we should have open minds, just not open wallets. I have gone, as one of the speakers last week who spoke out of order, by the way, suggested we go to this Save the Troy Library site. I looked for any meaningful facts there. There are no legal opinions, even though they have hired a significant law firm in town. One of their documents, that law firm's document, was attached to last week's packet. There are no quantitative information as to how much the taxes will raise. There is no information as to what library building it is that will be used as a library. All these things are just confusing, and when people are confused, the obvious answer is to vote no on all these ridiculous proposals. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Richard Peters.
Good evening, Council, Mayor.
Good evening.
Folks. I was kind of looking this week at on TV at Hoover, Alabama, and what they were doing down there is they have almost a total self-sustaining system. They have actually, they make their own ethanol, they make their own biofuel. People bring vegetable oil into the city, and they run all their equipment on this stuff. And I wonder if at least we might be able to take a look at that, because it was really enlightening for me. About some of these statements, I do agree that maybe this time I hope we do get the, although I was listening to this one woman tonight about the library, and I was enlightened about that also. But I would like to see us to get more out to the public and to be aware of this issue, because I think last time a lot of us were confused about the issue and we didn't really hear it all. And finally, one other thing about this recession we're in. There's an old saying, Latin phrase that goes, I think lupus, vulpum, vulpum, means a wolf knows a wolf and a fox knows a fox. And every time I hear the right scream about government getting us into this mess, I only have to look to Wall Street. If I recollect, it was Wall Street and the public sector that got us into this mess and derailed. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to response or reply to public comment. Is there anyone on staff or council that wishes to speak at this time? Mrs. Bloom?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to just respond briefly. I just want to clarify some of the questions, because there are voters who do have absentee ballots. And so to the extent that I can provide some clarity, I would like to do that in response to some of the comments that were made. The ballot petitions, all 4 of them, are asking for an amount less than 2 mills. That is the maximum amount that can be placed on the ballot to support a library. It cannot exceed 2 mills. but it has to be something that is approved by the voters. So all of them are even less than 1 mil, all 4 proposals. So I just want to make sure that that's clarified, that the maximum amount that can be raised to support this independent library, should it pass, is the amount that is articulated in the ballot proposal that passes.
Thank you. Anyone else, Council? Councilwoman Kerwin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And again, it's for the attorney. We understand the First Amendment rights, but it appeared tonight that some of the comments bordered on slander. There was some defamation of character going on here. I'm wondering if it would be wise for us to caution speakers, and I'd like your opinion on that.
Mrs. Bloom?
There is a First Amendment right. However, you cannot slander a person. You cannot make inaccurate comments about a person. Persons do have a private lawsuit, possibly, that they could pursue, separate from anything that could happen in a council meeting. So there is no right in a public meeting to say things that are untrue. I'm not saying that that happened tonight, but there is no right to do that. And in addition, individuals who do feel like they have been defamed may pursue a private action to get redress.
Councilwoman Kerwin?
So, Madam Mayor, I'm wondering if you might, as chair, then caution. I heard a number of our residents, in my opinion, were slandered tonight. A fine organization, a patriotic organization within our community, disparaged regarding flags and 9/11 and so on. So I guess I would ask you, I don't know how the other council members feel, that should that begin happening again, at least a caution might be in order.
I think that the appropriate, at the time when the speaker is speaking, you want me to interrupt that speaker at that time?
I think so.
And the other thing that occurs sometimes is that inaccurate information is given, but that is not the same as speaking against an individual or an organization. Is that correct, Mrs. Blum?
Yes, that is correct, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other replies, or Mr. Zerlag?
One thing you may want to take a look at are your own rules of procedures on how you televise and what you televise on our cable TV station. If someone says the DDA is criminal and the San Marinians celebrated 9/11 and it's going to be shown 20 times on your cable station, you may decide to expunge that portion of the meeting.
And we would do that as a group.
I'd have to talk to the attorney about that. That's just something that...
Yes, I was rather shocked.
You don't even have to cable your TV programs if you don't want to. You can have meetings without cable TV, so as a subset of that, editing certain statements that are slanderous or outright lies.
It never ceases to amaze me during public comment at Troy City Council meeting, some of the things that are said by individuals. And one thing I think that should be very clear to the general public is that the proposal that is on the ballot of the library issue is a citizen petition initiative brought forward, and it does follow the 1877 law. It is not a city council proposal. It is not a city management proposal. And that is true of all 4 proposals that are on the ballot. And so I want that to be very clear. Further comment or response?
Madam Mayor?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Mayor Pro Tem Fleming.
Yes, at least one person tonight, one speaker, asked some questions regarding the future of the library and what would happen if this proposal 1 passed. And I think there are some questions out there, and if we could try to clear those up for the citizens, it might be helpful. For instance, one question is, what happens to the building? What happens to the books? Do those automatically donated to this new library board, or what happens? So could we get some legal response to that? Would that be appropriate at this time? Would you like some time to think about that?
Mrs. Bloom?
Madam Mayor, I can provide, again, it is an 1877 law, so it is not that exhaustive. However, just a couple of other things, too. There is an elected board. Should any of the proposals pass, it would be an elected board that would govern the library. They would receive money from the City Council, so they would have to make a budget proposal, and that would have to be presented to the City Council, who would authorize the expenditure of the monies up to the amount that is supported in any passing ballot proposal. So city, if their budget isn't for the entire amount, then City Council would not even need to give them that entire amount under the law of 1877. In addition, there is no guarantee that the building and or the books would be donated. I believe that their budget includes some money to perhaps negotiate what happens with the existing library building and what happens with the books. That is something that City Council, as the owner of the building, would need to have some weigh in on. So that would be something that would be brought to you if any of the proposals were to pass.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
Yeah, a follow-up to that, if I may. So this library board would be elected. That would be at the next election opportunity. The citizens would vote on the library board?
A temporary board is appointed initially until there is an election, and then the election would be thereafter and would have the same cycle as the city election, so it would be every 2 years.
Further response or reply to public comment, questions from staff?
I have a couple more.
Councilwoman Kerwin?
I guess for the city assessor, if I may, Madam Mayor. Mr. Licari, one of our speakers tonight spoke in terms of revenue generation as a result of these mills, $4.3 million for 10 years. Is that accurate?
Councilwoman Kerwin, that would not be an accurate statement. They would be facing the same issues that we're facing. Our property values are projected to drop for the next 4 years for sure, based on the 5-year budget we submitted. So while the 4.3 million might be an accurate number for this year, it would drop considerably for the next 4 years. That was the same issue that was brought to the public's attention on the 1.9 mil issue. People said you don't need the whole 1.9 mils, and no, the city didn't need the whole 1.9 mils the first year, but by the 5th year they did. And so the rationale would be to put that money into the fund, the budget stabilization fund, so that you could use it in the later years. So no, the short answer is no, they would not generate that much revenue even in the 2nd year. And by the 4th year, they would be generating much less revenue than $4.3 million.
One other question I have for the city manager, if I may, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
And that had to do with, again, we have Mr. Kempen, who also distributed Cap the Tax petitions, I believe. Did you chair that, Mr. Kempen? I believe, yes? Okay, for capping the tax, which makes it, again, difficult to allow for those fluctuations. Now we have this, and we had a speaker now gone, who put this, in a metaphor, a ransom note impossible to meet. So now we have this petition, which is like a ransom note for council, which is impossible to meet, which would go out and say you must come up with $4 million every single year to continue running the library. At 55 hours, I don't know why 55, because at 60 hours, at least we would be having money coming in from the State Library Board. At 55, it will be even less for us to be able to do. So please explain how that would ever happen. It seems to me it would be impossible to meet.
Mr. Zerle?
It would require a budget amendment. We used to have what was called Option 1 and Option 2. Option 1 was selected by City Council that became embodied in our budget document, the first-year budget as well as our rolling 3-year budget. And what that option did was to indicate